This is a breaking news alert. Lindsey Graham is dead. Let me repeat that. Republican Senator Lindsey Graham is dead.
Since that announcement, 3 new developments have changed the story. Emergency dispatch details indicate the call began with reported chest pains. The preliminary medical findings point to an aortic dissection caused by hardened arteries. And today, Graham's younger sister was sworn in to finish his Senate term. So the real questions are not built around a theory. They are built around the timeline. What happened during his final hours? Why are federal agents involved? And what changes now that one of Washington's most connected senators is gone? Friday, Graham was in Kyiv. Saturday, he was back in Washington. And he spoke with President Donald Trump, who said he seemed a bit tired, but otherwise normal. The newest detail comes from emergency dispatch information. Medics were sent to Graham's Capitol Hill home Saturday night around 8:30 for reported chest pain. Roughly 20 minutes later, responders were performing CPR. That closes one major gap. This was not simply a silent collapse discovered hours later. There was enough warning for someone to seek emergency help. The unanswered question is how quickly those symptoms escalated. We still do not have a public timeline of, when his flight landed, when did the pain start, and whether or not he experienced symptoms earlier in the day. The DC medical examiner preliminary finding is an aortic dissection due to arteriosclerotic cardiovascular disease. In plain English, the inner wall of the body's main artery tore. That can disrupt blood flow and become dangerous very quickly. That is the only medical explanation this video needs. It does help explain how somebody can appear functional one day and then deteriorate the next. But the official death certificate remains pending toxicology and microscopic testing. Preliminary explanation narrows the possibilities, but it doesn't make the microscopic and the toxicology testing irrelevant. The FBI says it's assisting local authorities and making federal resources available. It has not announced an assassination or any type of criminal case. At the home of a sitting senator, federal agents may have security, evidence preservation, or sensitive materials responsibilities. Officials have not publicly defined the FBI's role in this case, so we'll have to treat it as an informed possibility, but not as a confirmed explanation. The timing created the suspicion. Ukraine on Friday, death on Saturday, federal agents at the home. Testing is still pending. Social media treated that sequence like proof, but it's not. President Trump addressed the speculation today and said he did not believe foul play was involved. Now, that does not replace the medical examiner's final work, but it does undercut claims that officials have announced evidence of an attack. The useful question is not who did it. The useful question is, what specific role did the FBI perform? And will authorities explain it once the scene review is complete?
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that you will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that you will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that you take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that you will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which you are about to enter. So help you God.
I do.
Today, Darlene Graham was sworn in as South Carolina's new senator. She is the first woman in the state's history to serve in the U.S. Senate. The appointment carries an unusual personal story. After their parents died, Lindsey became Darlene's legal guardian and later adopted her so she could receive military benefits. The sister he helped raise is now finishing his final months in office. Is emotionally powerful, but politically temporary. She will serve through the end of the current term while South Carolina moves through a compressed election.
The last public appearance involving Lindsey Graham, he was in Ukraine on Friday. He was touring a drone factory. You see him in this photo over here with the drone, holding drones, walking around the drone factory. Let's just play this clip.
I've never been more optimistic than I am today that we have the formula to end this war. Help Ukraine be more lethal. Let those supporting Russia to know it's going to be a price to be paid if you keep doing it. And to try to find an off-ramp, not to humiliate Putin, but to end this war so that Ukraine will thrive and survive.
The stakes were larger than one foreign trip. Graham said he had reached an agreement with the Trump administration on a revised sanctions package, right? It was aimed at countries who kept financing Russia through energy purchases. The effort was bipartisan, so senators from both parties were working with him on it. So, even after his death, it may continue. Legislation isn't powered by just text on a page. Graham brought personal relationships, with Trump. He brought senators, he brought foreign leaders, and, senators who didn't agree with him on much else. The bill can survive. The network of pressure behind it is much harder to replace.
That he's a jackass.
Really?
That he's bringing his name down and he's not helping the process, and he shouldn't be commander-in-chief. If you want to be...
That clip matters because Graham eventually becomes one of Trump's closest allies in the Senate. That change was not cosmetic. It gave Graham direct access to the president, foreign policy, influence over judges, and Republican strategy. Supporters call that adaptation. He stayed close enough to shape decisions. Critics call it surrender. He abandoned warnings he once delivered with complete confidence. Either way, his death removes a political translator and someone who understood the Senate's rules and Trump's instincts. So which version defines his legacy? The senator who warned the country about Trump, or the senator who decided that, power was more useful inside of Trump's circle. For now, Darlene Graham is keeping the seat filled, but now South Carolina only has a few weeks to choose candidates for the next term. The Republican primary is scheduled for August 11th with a possible runoff on August 25th, followed by the November 3rd general election. The immediate Senate math, is going to stabilize when she's seated, but the influence gap remains. Graham had more than 3 decades in Congress, and he had deep relationships, with people in defense, foreign policy, budget, So he was really well connected. A replacement can cast a vote, but a replacement cannot instantly recreate decades of leverage. The next political fight is not only over who wins the seat, it's over who becomes Trump's next foreign policy ally in the Senate. 3 questions are still unresolved. First, what will the final microscopic testing and toxicology add to the preliminary report? Second, will authorities provide a minute-by-minute medical timeline? Third, will the FBI explain the scope of its assistance? Those are evidence-based questions. They don't require assigning blame to Israel, Iran, Ukraine, Russia, or anybody else, unless evidence exists. Graham's death has reopened a broader issue. How much should the public know about the health of elected officials whose decisions affect the entire country? He was working one day overseas and dead the next day. That type of timeline is going to create some suspicion, especially when official news is slow. Transparency cannot prevent every theory, but silence almost always gives theories room to grow. Lindsey Graham will be remembered as a military lawyer, a foreign policy hawk, a deal maker, a Trump critic, and eventually one of Trump's most loyal allies. The evidence currently supports a sudden medical emergency and a preliminary finding of aortic dissection linked to cardiovascular disease. Final testing remains pending. The FBI is assisting, but officials have presented no evidence of foul play, and his sister is now serving in the seat he held for more than 2 decades. Which part of this story changes Graham's legacy the most? His final mission in Ukraine? His transformation under Trump? Or the sister he raised stepping into his Senate seat? Tell me what you think in the comments, but please keep it factual and respectful. Subscribe.